Welcome back to the Taiwan Outlook. I'm Raymond Wu. We're continuing our conversation with Mr. Ralph Jennings, who is the foreign news correspondent for Reuters News Service in Taipei. Ralph, you've been in Taiwan for 2 years now. Can you share with us your adaptation process? Even though you know the language well and things, but in terms of lifestyle, in terms of how people act and react here in Taiwan, how has that process been for you?
It's been, again, very interesting, and I'm afraid I'm still in the process.
Okay.
So my answers to you may be incomplete and premature.
Ongoing, yes.
Very much ongoing.
Yes.
Of course, when you first move to any place, you need to settle some basic issues. One of those is, where do you live? Mm-hmm. And I've found that it's actually quite difficult to find adequate housing on my budget, which is not small, but it's not huge.
Okay.
And most of the nicer places are made for like single Japanese people, and I'm not single and I'm not Japanese.
Okay, very small, you mean?
Yeah, and a lot of the other places are not very well maintained.
Okay.
And so those don't work either.
No.
So it's been quite difficult to find a place to live.
Yeah. Are you happy with what you have now?
No, I'm on my third place, and I'm going to need another one.
Okay. So that is a problem. That has been a problem. Mm-hmm. Other than housing, how about the other things? Transportation?
Transportation's great.
Okay.
Absolutely.
But you don't drive in
great.
Taipei?
No, I don't need to drive.
Yes.
Nothing.
Do you have a bicycle?
I have a bike. I can use the buses, use the subway. The taxis are reasonably inexpensive compared to other countries.
Hong Kong and places, yes. Yeah.
Eating can be a challenge.
Food, yes.
I find that a good dinner is very, very good dinner here.
Very expensive.
But a lunch can be difficult because a lot of it's kind of greasy, overpackaged, emphasis on saving money instead of eating well, I think.
Okay. That's always a difficult balance.
Right, but then you move on to breakfast and it's great. You get, sandwiches and hamburgers all over the street. So.
Okay. And then, but in terms of the local foods, do you have a favorite dish so far? How about the night markets? Do you go to them?
No, night markets are for tourists. I mean, I live here, so I don't go to night markets.
Okay, but how about the Taiwanese dish?
I really like the seafood. I like the steamed fish with kong xin sai or something like that. Okay. Just good hearty meal, healthy food.
How about some of the American restaurants that you have, especially the fast food chains? Do you find them to be a source of convenience? Because your lifestyle is probably very, time pressure and demanding.
It can be, but I find that Taiwan itself has its own fast food chains, so I really don't need to use the American ones. Mm-hmm. There are plenty of locally owned to locally operated fast food restaurants.
And provides Taiwanese foods for your consumption.
Or Western or Japanese or whatever, right?
Okay. And let me ask you that you talked earlier about the lack of international TV programs, English language programs on TV. But how about the other, areas where you think, for example, in the city of Taipei, the English use is not as widespread as it should be. For example, you talked that on subways it's okay, but how about in other areas that you can think of, where there can be more improvement to be made?
It's a tough topic, and it would be hard to finish. It would be hard to give you a good answer in a concise period. Yeah,
but for example, when you go to a store, do you often find that because the clerk may look at you as a foreign visitor or maybe a tourist, they will probably try to converse with you in language other than Mandarin. And do you find that more often that the clerk will be able to carry on the English conversation with you? Or would they, just shy away and, start, finding someone else in their place to try to, find out exactly what your request is?
I think in the very beginning we have to look at the English language education here.
Okay.
From what I know, English is very popular, but many of the students don't know why they're studying English. They don't really understand what it's for except to pass tests and get jobs.
Yeah, get a higher grade.
And this, of course, is common everywhere in East Asia. It's not just Taiwan. And as a result, those who can actually speak the language well are relatively few. If you take 100 people who study English, maybe only 4 or 5 of them can really speak it fluently. And it's because they haven't had speaking practice. They don't actually use the language after studying it. They simply use it, they put it on their resume, they pass the test, they can probably read and write it okay, but they don't speak it, they don't understand it. And I think I can only speak for Americans perhaps, and only some Americans, but we expect when we go abroad to speak the local language. So I am not expecting Taiwanese people to speak English with me. They should expect me to speak Chinese with them.
And of course, your Mandarin, your Chinese is very good. Did you learn your Chinese in China or before going to China?
I learned it in Beijing.
Okay, and then did you find the language, Mandarin, a little different in Taiwan as we use it? Or have you started, taking lessons in Taiwanese?
No, it's different here. I mean, the Guoyu, or the Mandarin Chinese here is significantly different from Putonghua.
Of course.
In China.
Yeah.
You get some differences in pronunciation, some differences in accent, differences in vocabulary. Language is a reflection of the society in many ways, and the culture, and what you're exposed to, and what you see, and what you don't see.
And as far as entertainment, leisurely activities concerned, other than bicycling, what else do you do in Taipei on weekends or days off?
I sometimes hike in the mountains as well as bicycle. I go
pretty
swimming.
much outdoors.
A lot of outdoors. This is a great place for the outdoors. It's much cleaner than Beijing.
Yes.
It's not a polluted city.
That's for sure, yes.
It's a relatively small city geographically. And it's easy to get out and get out of town. I do occasionally go to the bookstores and go see the movies and hang out with friends in the bars and that kind of thing.
Yeah, the usual activities. And also, you've stayed in Taiwan for 2 years, and then you've, of course, celebrated Chinese New Year in Taiwan before. What's your impression as to all the different festivities are staged in Taiwan, starting with Chinese New Year, all the way down to Christmas in December?
Yeah, I think a holiday or a festivity in any country really depends on who you know.
Okay.
If you know somebody who
you can get together with.
Yeah, with whom you can celebrate it, then it becomes meaningful. It becomes fun.
Okay.
When I was in China, almost every year I stayed.
Okay.
And I would celebrate with friends.
Okay.
Here I haven't had that much luck actually.
Okay.
And in fact, next year I'm planning to leave for about 10 days.
Oh.
Because if you don't celebrate it, it's just monotonous. You hear fireworks every night and every day, and you can't sleep.
Okay.
And you can't do your work because you can't sleep.
But in case you change your mind, you're welcome to come with us.
Okay, I'll come back to your program.
Or come spend a day or two with our family. Yes.
But I'm sure that the festivities are very rich and meaningful if you go inside somebody's home.
Okay.
Or if you're inside the temple.
Of course.
I mean, if you're involved in the process, then you feel it. But if you're not, then you just see it from the outside, and it really doesn't mean that much.
Yeah. But before your exposure to the Chinese language, to the culture, did you know anything about, in terms of the festivities, for example, over Moon Festival, over the Dragon Boat Festival? Did you have some prior exposure to it when you were in the States?
Yeah, because I lived in the San Francisco area for many years, as did you, right?
Yes.
As you know, many ethnic Chinese people live there, so we were
Chinese
exposed to
presence.
the Mid-Autumn Festival and the Spring Festival. Not deeply. I mean, just that we had a very surface level, shallow understanding of what those were all about. But we knew it was in the newspapers, and you'd see it on TV. So we knew what they were and about when they were.
But in terms of your experience in Taiwan so far, do you think that in terms of your friends maybe thinking of coming to Taiwan, the things, your family coming to Taiwan, what would be the things or things that you recommend the most about Taiwan?
One of my friends who used to work in branding said it to me best, and what he said was Taiwan is a good place to come to understand Chinese culture without having to deal with the problems of China.
Oh, okay.
You can come here and it's safe and it's small and it's convenient
Open.
and it's not polluted and people are reasonably polite.
Yes.
And yet it's still very traditionally Chinese, so you can see that without any trouble. Where if you go to China, yes, you have the Great Wall and you have the Forbidden City, but you also have a lot of problems just in terms of habitability and convenience.
Okay.
And getting and sanitation and a list of issues that you face if you go to Beijing that don't exist here.
Okay, but one last question before we end this segment. Compared with other Asian cities, I suppose you've been to many of them other than the ones in China. How does Taipei stand compared with those other cities in terms of English accessibility, convenience, the level of expensiveness, all these things? How does Taipei compare?
English, again, I'm not sure.
Okay.
I think the best city for English has to be Singapore.
Okay,
it is one of their
or
official
Hong Kong,
languages,
yes,
or Hong Kong.
Yes.
It's probably ranks pretty well in terms of expense, in terms of costs,
Yes.
cost of living,
Yes.
getting things done, transportation and food. It's not bad.
Okay.
It's a pretty good deal.
Yes.
One thing Taipei could really use more of, I think, is expatriate housing.
Yes.
Rentals, places you can stay.
Okay. Make it more friendly and welcome
Yeah,
foreigners.
just a little bit
coming
more internationalized.
Okay.
It just
in. Okay. More accessible.
Yeah,
that
more
way.
more places where you can use the internet.
Okay.
In the street,
Okay.
perhaps as you suggest, more English signage in different places.
Okay. Well, that will all help. Yes. And when we come back to the Taiwan Outlook, we're going to look ahead. Look ahead to 2009. What are the things that we can expect around the world and also in cross-strait relations? We'll be right back with Mr. Ralph Jennings.